I'm Thomas Smith, and yesterday OpenAI, the company behind DALL-E, made a huge announcement. They just opened the system up to a public beta, and they also made the images available for commercial use, which means that you can make money off of the images that DALL-E generates. So that's a huge deal. It's hard to overstate how big of a deal that is. And I think it's going to lead to disruption in a huge number of industries that rely on graphics. But I want to, instead of telling you about that, show you 5 industries that DALL-E could disrupt overnight and exactly how it might do that. So the first industry is Microstock Photography. This is a space that I'm in to some extent. And I want to show you, this is DALL-E that you're seeing right here, what this could do with Microstock. So a lot of the time people will turn to Microstock for the photo at the top of a blog post or a news article, something with a pretty strong visual metaphor that's fairly obvious and tells a story that ties into the rest of their post. So a great example of that would be something like, a stop sign, something saying stop doing something or stop doing, this action. You're going to have to change your way. So there's visual metaphor would be a stop sign. Let's create something really visually compelling that would replace what you might find on a Microstock website to capture that visual metaphor. So I'm going to say a photograph of a stop sign on fire. Let's be really heavy-handed with the metaphor here. We'll give it about 10 seconds to generate. Here's the results. You can see, these are some pretty, that visual metaphor carried out quite powerfully here. I think this would be a pretty arresting image to put at the top of a blog post. And again, this was generated in about 10 seconds by DALL-E. So if you're a stock photographer and you would otherwise have to either set a stop sign on fire, which you probably wouldn't actually do, but photograph the stop sign, photograph some fire, do all the compositing and combination and stuff to create an image that captures this metaphor. Instead, DALL-E generates it in 10 seconds just from the concept. So kind of a scary, powerful capability there. Let's try this again for that Microstock use case, but with a slightly less kind of heavy-handed visual metaphor. Let's try a help wanted sign in the window of a store. A very common Microstock type of image you might see for a post about new hiring, that kind of thing. So back to DALL-E, it sometimes struggles with text. So I'm just going to say a hiring sign in a shop window here, so we keep the text as simple as possible. Okay, so here's an example of what it's able to generate there. It's even like a little bit off center, so it looks like somebody really took this photo in a shop window. It put some sun glare in there. You could definitely see cropping this, editing it a bit, and using it for a help wanted type of blog post or something about the economy. So again, if you're a stock photographer and you go out and generate these or create these, this is definitely a disruptive technology. The next one I want to look at is logo design. So logos are notoriously kind of abstract. They're designs that can be pretty interpretive. So let's see what DALL-E can do with that, because that's exactly the kind of thing that it's great at. So let's make a logo for my company, Gatto Images. We're a photography company, and lots of photography companies end up with some variation of a camera aperture, that kind of look that you'll see when we start to generate it. So let's create a 2-color formal logo for a photography company with a stylized design of a camera aperture. And let's see what it does. Okay, so we have lots of variations on that concept of a camera aperture. This one looks pretty good, and it's just going to put random text down here that's not even really text, but you can see how you could take a logo concept like this. I can download this image and then pull it up in Photoshop. Let's get rid of the company name thing on here. It's basically gone now. We'll kill the background on here. Now we've got something that we could put on any kind of a background. It's nice and clean because it was generated straight out of DALL-E there. Let's pick up the color that's in this logo, and then we will flow a bit of text over top of here. Let's say Gatto Images, my company. We'll center this generally around that logo there. And we can rasterize this. We can have the background be transparent. We could fill that in. Maybe pick up the second color there just to really bring through the random design that DALL-E has created here. Mess with the blending a little bit, make this blend in a bit better. And there we go, new image, new logo for the company. Maybe it's not the most brilliant, but this is the first attempt. I think with a couple hours of playing around with this, and if I had a stronger concept that's not so commonly used, you could definitely create a logo that would actually be usable for a company. And certainly this could replace basic logo design for, new companies and that kind of thing. So, again, logos are pretty subjective. Somebody might love this. Somebody might love a different design you could create with DALL-E, but certainly if you're in the logo design space, this is going to be a potential disruptor. And I think especially on the lower end, people who want a logo for a relatively inexpensive project where they're not doing a whole rebrand, or it's a new company, or it's a brand product line or something, this could certainly generate that lower end piece of the market pretty readily. Okay, next market we want to look at, our next industry, illustration. So common to see, illustrations that focus on important concepts like medical concepts. I think there's probably going to be still a market for the technical side of that, but DALL-E could certainly disrupt some of the more basic illustrations. So let's type in here something like person getting a vaccine illustration. And here's our results. So some of these, a little bit, this doesn't really look like a vaccine, but some of these illustrations a little more stylized. Actually, you could see these being used to illustrate that concept fairly readily. So, probably would require, just like the logo did, a bit of human cleanup, but certainly a lot less than designing something from scratch. So you can see how for a basic concept here of illustration, you could easily create these kinds of images with DALL-E. Next industry, merchandise. This is a huge industry. People create all kinds of different merchandise. This is an example of a popular site, Cafe Press, where people create designs and sell them. Wall art, these kinds of stylized designs, are something that DALL-E can create fairly readily. So let's go over and do that. Let's say the Golden Gate Bridge, painted by Monet. And we'll create something there. There we go, we got some lovely stylized paintings of the Golden Gate Bridge in an impressionist style. You could definitely see putting this on the wall in your house or a waiting room in an office or whatever it might be. These are pretty realistic oil paintings here. Let's switch it up though and say painted by Mondrian. We'll go for something a little bit more abstract. So that's super cool. The Golden Gate Bridge painted by Mondrian. We've got those signature squares there. Again, you could definitely see selling this as a wall art design or to put on any kind of a merchandise product. And you can just generate these kinds of artistic images endlessly and create a lot of different illustrations and things for wall art. So certainly a threat in that industry as well. And the final one I want to look at is textures and abstract backgrounds and designs. So these are really popular. Everything from wallpaper to computer wallpaper and backgrounds for apps, PowerPoint backgrounds for presentations. These are sort of abstract designs and textures. So let's say close-up texture of redwood tree bark. We're going quite realistic textures here. Again, backgrounds and that kind of thing. This would be perfect for that. We can do some others that are more abstract. Here I typed in screensaver background with subtle stylized, we'll say stylized blue lines. So quite cool, delivers what you would want there. I could totally see this being used as a PowerPoint or presentation background, and you can just create these brand new textured backgrounds, things that you could use for, again, a presentation or a brochure or anything, or computer screensaver like the prompt, and you can just create these endlessly. So if you're in any of these industries, if you're an illustrator, if you're a stock photographer who takes more like microstock images, and particularly if you're creating illustrations for merchandise, I think that's one of the most compelling. I mean, I would put this on my wall. I think DALL-E has some pretty disruptive capabilities here. There are some caveats though. Before, one of the caveats was that these images were not available for commercial use, anything that generated income. That's no longer the case. Again, DALL-E is now available, according to OpenAI anyway, for commercial use, so they're not standing in your way there. However, there's a lot of questions about, if these images are generated from a training set, what does that mean for who owns them? What does that mean for what you can do with them? These are as yet unanswered questions, and I'm not an expert in that space. I'm a technologist. I can show you what's possible, but what ultimately, will be allowed, what ultimately people will do with this, we'll have to just see. But certainly a lot of disruptive capability here with DALL-E.